Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Shot Quality Bets podcast. I am your host, Justin Perri, along with my good friend, Big 3 for 3, here to talk to you about everything you need to know about shot quality bets and how we are approaching some of the big games for Thursday's slate. That's right. If you're here watching with us on YouTube, we're doing a little bit of a look ahead, always trying to stay ahead of the ball. We will be discussing some of the biggest games from Thursday, and then we will be having a new special guest joining us today. Very excited about that, but we will get to that later. Big 3, how you doing today? How are you feeling about the college basketball season kind of winding down?
Yeah, no, doing pretty good. Happy about how that Georgia Tech one went yesterday. That was a big
Yeah.
a big play for shot quality bets. We talked about it a lot on the podcast on Monday. So that felt like a big one to get. And yeah, just in the game the whole time. And they looked, like we mentioned, that they were much closer to the 120th best team than they were the 200th team that a lot of other analytics sites have them. So yeah, happy off of that one for sure. I don't know. Looking ahead to Thursday's slate, it's not the typical like stacked Thursday slate that I think we've gotten pretty used to over the past month or so. But definitely some value still and some good games for sure.
Yeah, and we're sitting here recording this on Wednesday. It seems like there was a little bit more of a front-loaded, scheduling for this week. There's a lot of games Wednesday, a little bit lighter on Thursday, but that doesn't mean that there won't be some good ones. There's some Big Ten action going on. We'll dive right into that. But of course, if you heard Big 3 saying what we were talking about on Monday, we do our Shot Quality Top 25 show every Monday at 4 p.m. You can go check that out. It's already on YouTube. You can find it on the Twitter too, and also on Spotify under the Shot Quality Bets podcast. So what we're trying to say is that if you're looking to understand some of the ratings that shot quality might have, the discrepancies that maybe you can get an advantage from, that show is always a great watch, if we don't say so ourselves. But without further ado, let's jump into our first big game of the Thursday slate. Big 3, Northwestern has been a fun team to watch. I mean, it feels like they're going dancing, but it maybe even more so. It feels like they are poised to make a run. One of those teams that we see to be pretty dang good in this Division I landscape, 16th in shot quality right now, really relying on the top 15 defense. They're going to be matching up against Illinois on Thursday. What do you make of this game? As I pull it up, it looks like shot quality has Illinois holding home court and winning by about 9 points.
Yeah, this is one. Honestly, these are two teams that shot quality likes both these teams. I think you got what 15 and 18 here in the country, which are both higher than AP rankings. Illinois is not ranked in the AP poll. I think Northwestern's like 21 or something like that. So two teams that shot quality thinks are actually better than I guess the AP poll or even like the market I think realizes. But yeah, Northwestern, big surprise, honestly. As a Duke fan, I would not have been super happy if Duke had gone out and hired Collins. I think he was like one of the guys at least considered a little bit and just like, I don't know, bounced all around. Northwestern obviously loses the two transfers in Pete Nance and Ryan Young to North Carolina and Duke this year. And for them to have lost those two guys and to have pulled together this season so far has just been awesome. And I would say, yeah, definitely safe in the dance now, which was the worry over the last couple of weeks. And now it's just, how good of a seed are they going to get? But yeah, honestly, I'm liking Illinois here and the model's liking Illinois here. I think honestly, one of the biggest things is shot quality loves Illinois' defense. We have them top 5 in the country defensively. And I think like ultimately we talked about it last time, but they force opponents into awful shots. They rank second in the country in like shot selection allowed. They're third in the country in defending transition. They're first in the country in defending half court. Like they do everything defensively really, really well. I think at home, especially in these late conference play games against, hosting a ranked team at home, defense is really, really important, and I think like shot quality likes sometimes to give like the edge to these defensive teams. We've talked about it before, like not allowing good shots is worth a lot, whether it's just high turnover percentage, like you're not allowing them to get shots at all. But other things that Illinois does super well is Illinois does not let teams get rim and three very frequently. They're third in the country in opponent rim and three rate, which is incredible. Their rim and three rate allowed is 67%, which is at least 10%, if not 15, 20% behind a lot of teams. And when teams do shoot rim and three shots, they're sixth worst in the country. They only average 1.04 points per possession rim and three against Illinois. So they don't allow those shots very frequently. And when they do allow them, teams don't shoot them very well. And I think, like, once again, this is the definition of a good shot quality team is they're not really getting high quality shots. Not only that, but their high quality shots aren't good in the first place, you know? And so I think like Illinois defensively is just a textbook, like exactly what you're looking for shot quality wise in a team. And playing Northwestern at home here, it looks like the line is already out. I think they're going to be somewhere in the -4, -4.5 range. And that will register as a play on the value finder. And I will be on that one for sure.
I like it. I like it. So first play of the pod, getting a little bit of that early look ahead. If you're joining us now on YouTube, if you're listening, on Spotify, wherever podcasts are found, I don't know. But hey, shot quality, we are out here trying to just get you a little bit of a look ahead. I like this play too. I think there is a lot of attention on Northwestern right now, and maybe a little bit too much. Illinois is a solid home team. And again, shot quality says this is the best half-court defense in the nation. So if they can keep it in the half court, which isn't exactly what Northwestern is aiming to do, but I really think that the defense for Illinois will be able to shut them down. You do have really nice guards. Boo Buie having an awesome season. Definitely one of the guys who you need to watch it come tournament time to help his team make a run. But this isn't exactly that. This is still hostile territory. It's not played on a neutral site where, it seems kind of even. This is Illinois territory. They want to get these wins in the Big Ten to end the season strong, get into form. This is still a team that probably feels like it has unfinished business from last season. It's going to be a great game. I think it'll be a great game. I think it'll be close through the half. But yeah, I agree. Illinois pulls away late, is able to stop this powerful transition offense that Northwestern is able to run. This is the second best defense against transition in the entire nation in Illinois, and the second best defense against PNR ball screen on a per shot basis. Again, all of this is points per possession in terms of expected metrics. So yeah, first shot quality bets podcast play is going to be taking Illinois and laying the 4.5. I think that's about as high as we would go, right? We're not going.
I think, yeah, it's weird. It just is opening up on other books as we speak, and has opened like 6 some places. I think this one will settle back down in the 4.5 range. I would wait to 4.5 to play it. I think you'll be able to get that one by tip off. Another thing that I'll say, Justin, if you could pull up, once we get here, let's see what we got. So yeah, it was 4.5 at least at the time of recording, but I do think that's going up as we speak. If we can go into the Northwestern team page there,
sure,
Justin. A couple things I want to point out. If we look at their last 6-7 games here, we've talked a lot on this podcast about home court advantage and the value of home court advantage, and I think the general consensus is for some conferences, it's going to matter a lot. Other conferences, not as much. The Big Ten is definitely a conference where home court is very significant. I mean, there was a huge run, I think a couple years ago where home teams in the Big Ten started off 23-1 or something just absolutely insane like that, and I think it's really important to kind of look at their schedule like that, right? Where we have, 3 home wins, very good home wins, not discrediting them, but Purdue, Indiana, Iowa. Awesome.
Yeah.
You have 2 wins on the road against Wisconsin and an Ohio State team that's really struggling, both of which shot quality predicted to be losses, which is pretty significant.
Especially Ohio State. That's ugly against Ohio State.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the loss at Iowa too. So really on the road, I mean, you see up at the very top of the screen, a shot quality projected 6-point win on the road at Nebraska, but really in the last month on the road, you have loss at Iowa, should have been lost at Wisconsin, should have been lost at Ohio State. So I think like this is a team where you're like, okay, they're playing awesome. They just beat Purdue, Indiana, and Iowa at home, but it's not a team I'm as excited about betting on the road. And if we go into Illinois on the flip side here,
ShotQuality saying that Northwestern could very easily lose out. Kind of very interesting to see.
Yeah. I mean, the only really like close one there is Penn State
State
at home, and Penn State. I don't know. The Big Ten's just very, very deep.
It is.
But you look at this here. So we have win against Minnesota, which obviously doesn't mean a whole lot, but crazy. I mean, and that was an insane. The Indiana Illinois game, we talked about it on this podcast last week, but really, really good game down to the wire. Illinois definitely had their chances to win that one, but ended up being a half-point ShotQuality win. Penn State lost by 12 points, ShotQuality win by 5, right? Iowa lost on the road, ShotQuality win by 2. And so I think, like, obviously you see the 2-point projected Rutgers loss there, but you see a team that's, 2-3 in their last, 5 games, whatever. It's like ShotQuality has them at 4-1 in their last 5, right? And I think, like, people are looking at this Illinois team a little differently. Well, in that, yeah, you have 2 more wins right there. A lot of wins.
A bunch.
Yeah, so ShotQuality says of their last, 10 games, they only lost, and it's a 2-point loss against Rutgers, which, people are treating this team a lot differently if that's the case. So I think, like, that's something you kind of have, like, either side of the coin here, where you have Northwestern, who's gotten some ShotQuality projected luck in the last couple of weeks, and Illinois, who's got some bad luck by ShotQuality scores in the last couple of weeks. And I think that's kind of a good angle to target, because that the market is adjusting based on what's actually happening, not what ShotQuality is saying is happening. So usually a good spot when you can find either edge here and kind of bet against, the actual scores and bet what ShotQuality is saying has been.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, this is definitely a good spot. You don't really get the market sitting there saying that they should have beaten Iowa, Penn State, and Indiana. You have them evaluating this team as though they lost those games, and they did, as though, I think with they did, but they played well enough that if they repeated those same shots against the shots they allowed, ShotQuality would expect them to win at this percent, right? Only 52 for Indiana by half a point, but that's still, better than a loss, right? And we live in a very binary world in college basketball, right? Where we see it in the polls, we see it in the reactions and the analysis on TV. It's like, oh, they lost, or oh, they won. And it's like there's so much more to a game than that. And we don't play that game around here. We're not giving you money line bets. If you're money line better, sure. But we're out here talking about a spread, talking about the expected margin between these teams when the final whistle blows. So
the other side of this too, Justin, is I think you kind of had the slip up there too of like, they're treating it like they lost this game, which they did, and I think that's a funny thing too, because I think that's people's biggest worry or concern with ShotQuality, right? Is like they are losing these games, right? Like something should be said for the fact that they lost to Iowa by 2, they lost to Indiana by 3, and I completely agree. Like something should be said there, and they should get credit for that. But I think what people have a hard time conceptualizing is like, at least for me, going into a game, I want to bet on the team that is going to be getting better shots and allowing not good shots, right? And it's like, I think the way that I'm looking at it is it's like, okay, like if you're going to bet on these two teams and they're both going to get 20 equivalent 3-point shots up, right? Like one of them could make 10 in any given day and the other one can make 3, and that's a 21-point swing, right? But it's like, I think like people have a hard time conceptualizing that you're saying, all we're saying is like, hey, if they are able to get the same shots that they've been getting all year, and if they're forcing opponents to allow, and they're allowing the same shots that they've been allowing all year, like teams, like you'd be looking at them differently, I guess is the whole point here. And so I think like that's the hardest thing, is it's like we understand the value of winning close games, making free throws down the stretch, not, making like big mistakes at the end of games. But we're also saying that looking at the game as a whole, based on the shots that they've gotten, like you should be treating them differently. And I think like that's all that we're saying, right? Is it's like, okay, like if a 40% 3-point shooter is going 1 for 10 in a game or 1 for 8 in a game, like the team's probably underperforming what you should think they would do moving forward, you know? And I think like that's like ultimately what you have to wrap your mind around here. And I think once you get to that point, you're like, you can look at other things too, right? Like you can say, hey, this team is 2-5 in their last 5, right? But I think also like taking into account the shot quality score and kind of those angles as well is kind of at least a valuable thing to add into your handicapping at the very least.
Yeah, no, and we know it's a valuable thing to add. We've seen it across, multiple, sharp people, yourself, myself included. A lot of people are using this data to get a better understanding of what happened versus just, having to deal with the box score, having to deal with the team stats, trying to understand it. I mean, you can do that. You can go in and see how many, 3-pointers the worst 3-point shooter on the team made and try to manually discount some of that and saying, oh, okay, one of the worst shooters on the team scored 15 points on 7 shots tonight. Like it shouldn't happen. And that's kind of what ShotQuality goes in and does, is kind of find those things that more likely than not should not be occurring or would not occur regularly if simulated over a lot of trials. And it's not easy. Again, it can be a little counterintuitive. It can, obviously not be perfectly spot on. We talked about it Monday. There are players who outperform shot quality regularly because they're just that good. Some players are just that good. And it's just a powerful tool to include in your analysis as you continue to try to understand the game of basketball and the inherent luck, variance, craziness that goes into every single game. But we'll talk about one more game quickly, and then we're going to bring on our special guest who just joined the green room. We see you, Mr. Maximilian. So that's a little hint for y'all. But let's go from the power conferences to quite the opposite. We're going to go talk a little bit about this Milwaukee team that is going to be playing Purdue Fort Wayne. So I'm pulling up the value finder right now, taking a peek at the projected score. We have Milwaukee at home expected to score 74.4 points. Purdue Fort Wayne coming to town expected to score 76.6 points in the shot quality model. Right now, lines are opening up at around a consensus of -3.5 for Milwaukee. That would mean we have 5.7 points in favor of Purdue on this line, expecting them to be the winner. So this could be an interesting money line play at plus value if you'd like to take that type of swing. Or, of course, we're going to be on the spread. This does pass our value point, needing 4 points of value in the value finder to recommend a play. So this is a team I like a lot. Purdue Fort Wayne has been playing pretty well. Big Three, I don't know if there's anything that stands out to you here, but high frequency 3-point shooting, good spacing on offense, not really bad transition team. So sort of doing what we like to see around here quite well, right? Putting up the threes, getting valuable looks, running in transition, finishing efficiently in transition. And they're coming off of a win on the road against Wright State. ShotQuality actually had that as a much bigger win than the 2-point victory it appeared to be. This is maybe another one of those scenarios where Wright State looks like they've lost 5 of their last 7. ShotQuality has a few more wins peppered in there, some bigger victories, some closer losses. How do you feel about this IPFW team?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things here, honestly, you can see on the right, which is in that regressional analysis, the efficiency rating. They're scoring 0.98 points per possession, and shot quality has them at 1.02. Now, over the course of 25 games, we've talked about this before, like 0.04 is a pretty significant difference. You think of the 60, 70 possessions per game over 25 games. Think about how many more points like we're projecting a team like this to score. It's like at least if you're 0.04 off over the course of the season, it's probably a couple points a game, And so I think like people don't realize like how much that adds up over 25 games, and it is pretty significant. So this is a team that shot quality thinks offensively is much better than they're being rated. On the other side of the coin here, you have a Milwaukee team that shot quality doesn't like, at least compared to the market. I think KenPom has them 30-ish spots higher than we do at shot quality. And we have, Purdue Fort Wayne 10, 15, 20 spots higher than KenPom. So It's kind of one of those spots where we kind of disagree. on either side, and so it just meets our value finder perfectly. And I do honestly, I'm with you, Justin. I think that while we will be taking the spread as shot quality, I do think that this is a game that they probably win outright, as 3.5, 4 point underdogs. So
I like it. I like it. And my quick mental math here while you were talking, I believe what you're about looking at over the course of the season, 25 games, 70 possessions, 0.04 difference in points per possession. You're looking at something around close to like 60 to 70 points in the season. So you're talking 3 or 4 points per game that shot quality is expecting this team to be scoring more. And again, that can be the difference in a spread, right? Every point matters, and this is a team that we are saying should be scoring close to 3 points more per game based on the shots that they're taking. In the conference, you're also seeing that some of this regression is still there. Looks like for whatever reason, the post up play from this conference should be a lot better. It isn't, but the 3-point shooting expecting to go up, the finishing at the rim expected to go up, while on defense expected to go down. Some of the most reliable things that they do them pretty well. We can see that, again, the spacing is really nice. Probably pretty good in the conference too. Yeah, they're going to do a pretty good job, and the shot making has been okay, probably pretty reliable. I just think they're a very consistent team. Like, even if they're not necessarily winning the game, you know what you're going to get. They're going to put forward a good effort. And this Milwaukee team, I don't know. I feel like, there's a lot of things here to be worried about. Not a great defensive rebounding team, committing a lot of offensive turnovers. I mean, these are just the things you want to stay away from. They run fast, though, so this one's kind of going to be a fun one. I think we're going to have for what is a slate without too many highlights, this one should make for a good mid-major matchup. And if you take a look at some of these yellow games here, a lot of these are wins that shot quality had as losses. So kind of going the other way, exactly what we kind of want to see with like that quick handicap. Model lines up one way. You see that the team that you're fading or going against has a bunch of wins that were expected to be losses. Maybe allowing teams to shoot too well. Yeah, look at this top shot selection. That's kind of interesting. Milwaukee, the best shot selection in the conference. So it's going to really come down to if Purdue Fort Wayne can limit that. But we'll see. Last time they met, this was a Milwaukee win, but an expected IPFW win at IPFW. Would not be shocked to see Purdue Fort Wayne looking to get that victory back as they sort of sharpen up for, I guess, what could be an interesting postseason for them. It's kind of a fun conference over there.
Yeah, it's like you said, and you have on the screen there, 7 shot quality expected losses on wins there since December 31st, which is absolutely insane. And think about if they have 7 more losses on their record right now, they're probably being treated a little differently going into this one. I will say too, like we talked about offensively, both these teams take pretty good shots, just in terms of like what they're taking offensively. But I do ultimately think that, like we said, IPFW has just gotten some bad luck offensively, and we see that in their offensive regression. And just thinking about those couple points of possession, right? If they're scoring 2 more points or a couple points a game, if they're scoring even 2 more points every single game, they would be lined 2 points closer in this one. Like that's pretty much how it worked, right? If every single game they had 2 more points on offense, like shot quality expects them to, this would be plus 1.5, not plus 3.5, right? And like using that alone, you already have a pretty decent edge on the side of this game without even digging into the fact that Milwaukee won the first matchup by 4 and shot quality said they lost by 4. Like that's a pretty significant thing too that's getting baked into this line. So yeah, I think that this one lines up really well, kind of like the Illinois Northwestern, kind of getting either side of the shot quality disagreement against whether it be like the Ken Pom model or the market, or just recent box scores, and so I think like that's where you're really going to find good angles and great plays using shot quality, is like figuring out what setting lines, what other people are using to bet games, and finding where shot quality differs. Because if you can find where shot quality differs from what everyone else is doing, that's where you're going to find these really good value spots. And I think we've got 2 of them so far for sure, Justin. I like this one as well.
I like it. And I mean, we're staring here at the trend finder, And look at this over trend for Milwaukee. I kind of can't even believe it. ShotQuality loves how many shots go up in these games here for this conference, I'm sure. And Milwaukee, especially, the tempo is just so fast. If they can get those shots to fall and they just let teams just shoot at will as well and try to like out muscle you on the offensive side, those overs be looking pretty good for the shot quality numbers. But something to watch for if you like that, you could see maybe especially on their opponent's side. I think they allow more points than usually are expected of them too. So a good look for Milwaukee and probably a good sign for IPFW.
Yeah, I was gonna say this lines up pretty good though too with what we were saying earlier, right? Like the over on the value finder, we show 3 points of value to the over, but seeing that Milwaukee really should be 15-3 in conference to the over, pairing that with the fact that IPFW's had some bad luck offensively and ShotQuality thinks they should be scoring more. That's a pretty good recipe for an over. So yeah, ShotQuality has this one at 151. The line's currently 148. So technically for ShotQuality make a play here, we need like 145.5, but I think that this is a good one that if you, I don't know, you do your research and you like the angle here. I'm actually seeing 147 some places now. So we really might get down there and get a play on this over, but yeah, I like that angle as well.
Yep. And for our last game of the day, we are going to bring in one of the great writers that we have over at ShotQuality Bets. Has been killing it with his Max a Million article 3 times a week, always providing good value using ShotQuality tools exceptionally well. Started in the Discord, now a part of the team. Max Hofmeyer, welcome into the show. If I had fake effects, I'd give you a nice round of applause. How you doing today, man?
Good. It's great to be here. How are you guys?
Good. Excited to have you. Excited to hear some of your takes for the upcoming games on Thursday. Is there anything that you really wanted to jump into? Any games that were kind of catching your eye?
Yeah. So one of the games for tomorrow that I want to look at is the Rutgers Michigan game. So we also got a Big Ten here, and I know Big Three mentioned earlier how important some of these home courts are, and not all home court games and advantages are created equal, right? But when you look at teams like Big Ten and Big 12, the home court, I think, is just so powerful. So on initial glance here, we've got a pretty evenly matched game between Rutgers and Michigan, but that is using shot quality data, all of the games. But if you really break it down in those home and road splits, Rutgers in conference games at home, they're 6-2 ATS, which are pulling up the handy dandy trend finder right now.
Oh, we love the trend finder, don't we?
Oh, and it's perfect for conference matchups like this. So not only are they dominant at home, but if you take a look at Michigan too on the road, they are only 2-5 ATS in those Big Ten games. So yeah, although if this was played on a neutral court, I would expect it to kind of be in that 66 range, a tightly contested match. However, I just think the Rutgers home court advantage and the fact that Michigan tends to struggle on the road is something huge.
Let's take a look. Honestly, I like it. And look, we love the model, but if you pick and choose your spots, no one wins at 100%, right? So I like it. I respect coming out here and coming on the show for the first time and immediately telling us our model's wrong, right? So everybody Max Hofmeyer for the last time. No, I'm kidding. But no, I think it's a really interesting, call. We have seen. I mean, look at most of these away games. I'm taking a peek at Michigan right now. Their most recent away game, going to Wisconsin, lost by 5. ShotQuality expected them to lose by 11. All right. Before that, they beat Northwestern on the road. It was a pretty honestly, a pretty solid win. But other than that, that was coming off of a pretty rough loss to Penn State. They got dropped by 22, so they bounced back pretty nicely in that Northwestern win. But then prior to that, 3 more losses on the road, lost to Maryland, lost to Iowa, lost to Michigan State. And none of these losses were particularly close, none of them even within 5 points. So you might be onto something here, Max. I don't know. Big Three, what do you make of Michigan's woes on the road right now?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like Rutgers is a tough one too because I think the RAC gets like obviously a really good rep for just being a really tough place to play. I think too some of the things with some of these Big Ten schools too, it's just like situationally you get put into terrible spots sometimes, right? Just because basically every game you have to play is like really big, really important. You have rivals, every other week that you're playing really big, games. And so I think like you get thrown into some pretty tough situational spots and it makes it I won't say easier to like punt some of these games on the road, but like once you go down big on the road, sometimes it's just like I don't know. It's it's tough to really stay in it when you have another big game coming up. But I honestly think the biggest thing here, not that necessarily our model likes it, but bet-wise, one of the ones that I really think the angles there on shot quality would be the over. And if you could click into the Rutgers team page, Justin, I'll show you why. But we talked about this earlier with the shot quality points per possession for the regression. But if we go down to the regression table for
Wow,
Rutgers, it's insane.
that's
So
crazy.
they are scoring 1.01 points per possession on offense. Shot quality says that based on the shots they've taken, they should be scoring 1.06 points per possession. Defensively, only allowing 0.88 is super low. But shot quality has them at 0.96, which is significantly higher. And so I think that Rutgers, and this is a team that I don't blame people, but nobody really wants to bet these overs. But man, at 133 here, two teams that are traditionally like pretty low scoring, like we have it basically right on 133 too, but man, based on shot quality stuff, I think the over is probably the angle here, sidewise, and I'd say I would like that more than even maybe Michigan on the side, even though the model does like Michigan on the side. I think that the over might be a good look, and maybe it's even like a Michigan or a Rutgers team total over if you kind of want to pick a side there. But man, it really does look like Rutgers, shots are going to start to fall for them offensively,
Yeah,
and
I was
we're going
going
to
to say
start to
that.
score against them defensively. And I think I would definitely not be betting for them to keep up those trends of 0.88 points per possession allowed on defense. That's just abnormally low, and shot quality does not think that that's sustainable at all.
Yeah, I would wonder how it looks for Michigan on the offensive side as well, especially given their shot selection. So shot selection is one of my favorite metrics on the site as a whole. Honestly, tells you how good the actual choice of these buckets is. And Max, I'm sure you've watched a little bit of these teams. Do these ratings kind of line up with what you see out there? Does it feel like Michigan takes maybe less, I guess, less of a strong look, but has the shooters to get it home, while Rutgers is relying more on getting good looks because the shooters they have aren't exactly blowing away anyone's I guess expectations of them.
Yeah. So one of the things that I really like here too is, Rutgers. If you look at the rim in three, neither team necessarily here gets a like high frequency rim in three rates, but when Rutgers does, they are pretty efficient with the points per possession. So I think if they are able to get some open looks at home from three, at the rim, that should not only help, my Rutgers play, but help Big Three get his over too. So hopefully
There we go.
a double winner there.
No, I definitely like it. I think it's a really good point. We talked about it, I think, on Monday, where we said like rim and three is so densely populated that like they're still, just because you see them at 323rd in the nation at rim and 3%, they're still getting those buckets at 71.6% of their attempts as a whole. So you can almost like, yes, could they be a lot higher, and a couple extra percentage points could maybe put them into the middle of the pack in all of Division One? Sure. But what's still important is that more than 7 of every 10 of their buckets comes in a play type that they are essentially top 20 in. So their offense has been very potent in terms of developing high quality looks. It could maybe even be better, but I would imagine that this low number comes from an open, I guess, floor spacing that they can get because when they do run rim and three plays, it usually leads to a high level of points. Again, we talk about all the time, 0.04 in shot quality when you have 70 plays per game really does add up. So trying to keep all of that in mind. And we can look at some of the records here. There isn't anything too crazy. Rutgers 17-10 against the spread. Shot quality expects 14-13. Michigan 13-14. Shot quality expects 11-16. So, maybe there's a lot of ways to look at it, right? Maybe Rutgers is just a team that's been outperforming expectations, both in the market and of shot quality. And Michigan's been sort of at expectation level in the market, and shot quality even expects a little bit worse. So you should be getting a pretty good spot here with Rutgers. Definitely a tough place to play for Michigan, and might not exactly be the game that they're, I guess, looking at, right? I don't know, Max. I'll end off a little bit here with like a question for you about your handicapping style, and let you sort of talk about the way you approach things using shot quality. But do you take a look at some of these spots, being like, okay, Michigan going to Rutgers versus, all right, they have their mindset 3 days later, they're going to be playing Wisconsin for their last home game. Like, do you take any of that into effect or into account, and just talk to us about how else you use the shot quality data?
Yeah. So obviously, looking at what I like about conference play is, you get some similar opponents too, right? So both of these teams just recently went on the road at Wisconsin. I think you have Michigan up right here. So that was February 14th. And then Rutgers, their last game was Saturday the 18th. They're coming off, a road win at Wisconsin. So I like sometimes looking at, the similar opponents, like who is playing well now, what way are these teams trending? And, Rutgers is actually coming off a home loss, despite, how good they've been at home. They actually dropped to Nebraska on last Tuesday. They lost 82-72, which is kind of, that's unexpected, but they're a team that's kind of been hot. Fred Hoiberg has them trending in the right way. So I just think this is a good bounce back spot for Rutgers at home, and take advantage of the rack and Michigan's inabilities on the road.
Yeah,
well, there you have it.
I think spot-wise too, just like what I was going to say there is, I just think, like, I don't know. I honestly don't like capping like this, like trying to look at situational spots. Like, I know people are able to do it and do it well. It's just not something that, I don't know. I believe in that.
No, it's definitely priced in too, right?
Yeah.
So like sometimes you can almost fade that.
Yeah. In terms of a spot here, you have Michigan coming off of, obviously, is big of a rivalry game as you're going to get really at home against Michigan State, right? And a 12-point win, and like Justin said, you have your senior night home game on Saturday or Sunday, whatever that is, so it's just like, it is kind of a weird spot, but I do think that attributes a lot of, like in the Big Ten or in a conference like this, if you can just hold home court and you can win when you're at home, you're going to be fine. Like you'll probably steal a couple of weird away games, but I do think there's something to be said about that in the Big Ten and in the Big 12, where it's like, it's really important to win at home, and the way, when you're away, you just try to get what you can, and so I do think that of all conferences, the Big 10, Big 12, probably the most significant home court advantages. So I don't disagree with you liking the home side here, even though the model likes the away team, but I don't know. Like I said, I'm more interested in the total here, but if we could both win, that'd be fine.
Hey, that'd be great. And I'm really appreciative of both you guys stopping by today, talk a little bit of shot quality. Max, before we go, tell the good people at home where they can find you, and then maybe give a little shout out to that article you're posting today.
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter, at Hoffy8121, and the Maximilian picks, we're going to be dropping them every Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, like we have been. And I actually, just before I hopped on, I finished the write-up. So I'm just, giving it a read over, and it should be posted up shortly. So
beautiful.
We got 3 plays for today. So let's hopefully get a nice, 2-1, or don't want to be greedy, but 3-0 day.
Hey, we can be greedy around here. And if you are looking for Max's picks, you can always check the shotqualitybets.com/blog page. Max's stuff will always be categorized under best bets. And hey, sometimes Big 3 for 3 stops by and drops a pick for us. So definitely a good place to go check out if you're looking for more shot quality content. Really great stuff from Max 3 times a week, breaking down how he uses these tools that you see on the screen during the show. So give him a follow on Twitter. Make sure you follow us at Shot Quality Bets. Give the show a little love if you can. We'll try to get Max back so we can keep talking a couple of his picks every so often. But Max, again, thank you so much for joining the show. Really appreciate it. And everyone else at home, we appreciate you watching, tuning in for another episode of the Shot Quality Bets podcast. We will be back tomorrow to get you started on one of the last big weekends of college basketball. So make sure not to miss it. Again, sub on YouTube, hit the like on Spotify. We will have another episode in your feed on Friday morning, previewing another great weekend in college basketball. Thank you again for joining the Shot Quality Bets podcast. We will